Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining today. I'm so excited about this webinar, and I know that our Staylist team is as well. So for those of you who may not know me, I'm Courtney. I am the Customer Success Manager here at Staylist. And today we're going to be talking about something that has come up in a ton of conversations with operators, with managers over the past year, over the past few years, which is managing long-term and seasonal stays. So billing and recurring payments, utilities, adjustments, all of it, all of the above. These are a lot of moving parts when guests are staying for months at a time. And we know that. So today we're going to talk about two things. First, we want to share and spend some time talking about the business side of long-term stays. And, we're in that area where it actually, a lot of parks find and create more stability in their revenue. And then the next thing that we're going to talk through is recurring charges, which is Staylist's new approach to managing long-term and seasonal billing. And we're also going to connect, all of these concepts together with accounting concepts, which is, what we've been discussing in our webinar series with Tyler Otto, where, we're talking about clear billing, financial visibility, and organized invoices. So we'll jump right in. And, we're so excited, like I said. So we listened, we built it better. Managing long-term stays should not be complicated. And so for, most operators, naturally focusing on transient guests because that's where, your higher nightly rates are. And that makes sense, right? But something that we've consistently seen across the industry is parks that perform the best long-term understand something really important. And that's that transient guests create revenue spikes and long-term guests create stability. So over the past year, we've spent a lot of time talking with operators. We've been reviewing workflows inside parks and looking closely at how long-term guests are actually managed day to day. And so Vlad and his team have, taken all of this data, taken all of this information and really built from the ground up recurring charges. And that's a result of one of those conversations. So today we're going to show you how it works. But before we show you how it works, we're going to talk about why long-term strategy matters for your business. So you have long-term versus transient reality, right? So we know that transient guests have higher nightly rates. They have higher marketing costs, higher turnover and labor, and less predictable occupancy. Whereas long-term guests, they have lower nightly rates, predictable monthly income, lower operational turnover, and stable occupancy. So when we compare transient and long-term guests, transient stay will almost always generate, higher site revenue. But we all know that, right? That's just the nature of short-term bookings. But the bigger question that operators have to ask is what comes along with that revenue, right? So we know that with transients, you require more marketing spend. You're looking at running Facebook ads or Google ads, right? You're saying how much marketing dollars am I going to put into my budget this year? You're going to have more check-in and check-outs, which means more labor. You're going to have more maintenance labor, more groundskeepers, making sure that sites look that the way that they're supposed to, make sure that the trash is picked up. Check, water, sewage, electric, all of those things to make sure that your transients and your turnover go really quickly. And then, but we also know that there is a variable, which is the occupancy part of it, right? Whereas, your long terms, they operate completely differently. So, with long terms, you generate lower nightly rates, but they provide predictable monthly revenue. So lower turnover and a more stable occupancy. So the more successful parks, they don't choose between the two. They find a balance, right? And that's building that strategy and looking at it and saying, how can I add both of those in my park, whether it's in my short term or my shorter season, my longer season, maybe you're a seasonal park, but looking at, shoulder season versus off season versus busy season, is how you can find that balance. So why long-term guests matter, right? When long-term guests are managed well, they become one of the most valuable parts of your business because they create that predictable, recurring revenue each month. And you're not spending marketing dollars trying to consistently fill those. Like, sure, you might go to, trade shows where you're trying to target people up north who are going to come, and spend, stays down south, right? Or maybe you want them to stop along the way and stay 30 to 60 to 90 days with you. But those aren't the reasons you're spending your marketing dollars. You're spending your marketing dollars on getting, weekends booked, right? Trying to fill your week for St. Patty's Day because you know that your city or town does a big, St. Patty's Day festival. Or maybe it's something like the eclipse, which happens, once in a blue moon, and you want to try to fill your site nights because you're right in that line of direction. Those are all ways that you're trying to fill for your short terms, but your long terms, you don't need to spend that marketing dollar on. And that's less turnover and fewer operational tasks that are tied to each of those guests. When you think about it from, a number standpoint, if you have 30 nights, and for easy math, we'll just do, $20, right? That's $600 a month. And then if you're looking at 40 long terms, that's 24 grand that you can expect to come in every single month for all of those 30 days. So looking at that and making sure that they help stabilize occupancy in your slower seasons helps with transient demand when it drops, right? But that predictable revenue that you have is something that you're going to take and carry into your off season, or maybe you bring it into your heavier season because you're like, hey, I need more labor cost, and you know that money that you're taking in from those long-term stays are going to help optimize that better. So they create opportunities for additional revenue through utilities. Maybe you charge for electric, or maybe you charge for water, even if it's a flat $25 fee per month. You have extra services, whether that be you charge for trash pickup or you charge for a pet fee for them to keep their pet, on property, all the months that they're there, or just additional add-ons like fire pits or golf carts. Those are all things that can, add to your long-term stays to make it more profitable throughout the extension of their long term. So when operators manage long-term stays effectively, then they create stable financial foundations that support all of their transient business, in their main on season. So where parks lose money on long-term guests, right? This is something that we have thought through from top to bottom, saying, hey, how can Staylist make this better for you as an operator, for you as a manager, for you as an owner, and help you put more money in your pocket and spend less time in the system and more time on the customer experience and the customer journey when they're at your property. So where parks, struggle with long-term stays isn't the strategy, right? It's not the strategy of how they're getting there or how they're staying with you or why they're staying with you, but it's the operations, right? So your billing adjustments become manual. Your utilities, sometimes you track them outside the system. Maybe you track your long terms out of the system and you do it all through QuickBooks instead of through your property management software. Your charges and your purchases don't always tie directly to your guest invoices. And then your staff ends up spinning and correcting balances instead of really focusing on what's important, which is your guest experience, which is their time on your property, and that make them fall in love with you, with your staff, with your location, and get them coming back time and time again, right? Where most parks, they don't lose money because of price for long-term strategy. But maybe they do that incorrectly as well. So they lose money because of the billing process. And it just becomes difficult to manage over time. And that's what Staylist has done. And that's recurring charges. And that's what is designed to make your entire process easier and better. So with recurring charges, it's designed to make managing long-term seasonal stays simpler, plain and simple. Instead of actually, manually tracking charges, adjustments, everything's organized into clear invoices, which is what we want. I used to be an operator. When I was shown this the first time and they're like, hey, Courtney, pick it apart, I literally was like, oh my gosh, this is like the coolest, most beautiful, most efficient thing I've ever seen. Recurring payments, they just run automatically. Your utilities, your point of sale purchases, your add-ons, they all roll into the same billing cycle instead of you going and manually changing things or moving things or saying, hey, did they pay for this month, or is this supposed to be on last month? It all generates it for you, automatically. So guests can clearly see what they're being charged for, and your team has better visibility, into balances and transactions. And it also ties into the accounting webinar series, that we were doing with Tyler, because one of the key things that we talked about in that series is the importance of financial visibility, right? If you have billing that's, disorganized, then where's your money? You don't know where your money is, right? But when it is organized, and properly into invoices, then it becomes easier to understand. So you know where your revenue is coming from, what your guests are being charged for, and how those charges flow into your financial reporting. And then it helps you look at things like your labor costs. It look at your cost of goods sold. All of these different, aspects when it comes to running your business produces financial clarity so you can say, hey, I'm doing this right because of X, Y, and Z. And so that's what we're here to help you with. Recurring charges was designed to not only make operations easier for you and your team, but also make your financial side clearer as well. So at this time, I'm going to go into a demo for you and show you recurring charges, which we are so excited to show you as a team. So give me 1 second and I will switch screens for you. In the meantime, I guess I will ask you, Nick and Clyde, if we have any questions before I start.
No, nothing in the chat right now.
Okay, perfect.
Question for you, Courtney.
Yes.
When you were working at Lakewood for all those years, how did y'all think about transient versus long-term um, bookings and reservations as you were filling Lakewood? It's obviously a high demand area near the beach.
Hmm.
And also, how do you find the right balance of when it's time to close doors for the season, if y'all close doors at all? I know you closed some in your point of sale, but how did y'all think about as you went through that process?
Yeah, so, in the summer, really between Memorial Day and Labor Day, we don't have problems filling site nights. It's really when it gets cold, when people don't have access to the beach or they don't have access to the lazy river. But sometimes parks don't even have those amenities, right? They just have their town and what's surrounding there. So, Myrtle Beach kind of becomes a quiet little sleepy beach town in the off season. There's not a whole lot going on. There's not a whole lot of events. So pricing was our first one. We say, how do we go from $150 a night to something that is sustainable for someone to stay anywhere from 30 to 120, sometimes to 180 nights, in this little sleepy beach town when it's a little chilly and it's not as warm as Florida, right? So um, we did a lot of experimenting, which I know it sounds like a scary term, right? But it's looking at your ADR, it's looking at your RevPAR, it's looking at all of these numbers that are going to say, hey, look, how can I find this happy balance between, my long term and my short term? Because we still have short term that come and stay with us, right? But it's saying, how can I consistently provide a nightly rate that people are going to want to stay and going to want to pay for. And then on your second question of that is how do you close doors, right? The thing is you don't want your operations on your camp store, on your food and beverage, on any of your, um, you know, main honestly revenue drivers in your on season to cost you money in your slower shoulder off seasons. You might have a loss leader, which is okay because you're still providing your guests with that experience, but you don't want to have every single entity of your business be a loss leader in that time. You don't want to fork out all of this money on labor costs because you just want to provide your guests with a good experience because then that's going to end up tanking your business. So it's just looking at it saying, hey, we're providing them with these things. Maybe we change up, the type of recreational activities that we have in our off season to say this is more for snowbirds. Like we had a fitness instructor come in and do chair yoga because the demographic of people were more elderly that stayed in our off season. So it's changing our recreational activities to also bring in and drive that. And also adding things like recreational activities that are going to cost money. So maybe you have somebody who paints and they pay for that painting service instead of you providing it as a free one, because you're going to get the volume that you would in your on season. So, it's a game of chess. But it's also a game of looking at logistics, looking at your bottom line and saying, hey, how am I not going to fork out all this money to keep the lights on in the off season? And then you need to price accordingly that way as well. Did I
Sweet.
answer your question?
That did. Thank you.
Okay.
And I also want to comment, a lot of what you were talking about, you get that deep knowledge through running an operation, but sometimes it's hard to put a data point behind that. And excited as we get through this full webinar series where we're kind of putting the cap on our last big release to close the door on accounting for our full system with the long-term module solution. But we'll be releasing an ebook here in the next week or so, talking through some of the KPIs that we looked through in our last webinar
hmm
and just be sharing some of those and how when you're looking at your busy season versus your off season, sometimes you're just relying on gut feeling, well, my revenue's down, but not realizing, well, my revenue went down 20%, my profit margin went down 90%, and how to change some of those and understand what's going on with your business through some of these different KPIs and how to roll those out in the system. So excited for that. But cool. I'll throw it back to you, Courtney.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So here's your Staylist dashboard. You're going to go into your availability grid just like you normally would. And then, you can create your reservation. If they want to say 160 days, it's going to automatically create that for you. And then it's going to go through and show you what sites are going to be available starting the 10th, all the way to the 17th of August, for 160 nights. So if you were to, click in here, then we're going to click long term, which is going to be what is new and improved for everyone. Usually you would have to create your reservation first, and then, change it into a subscription afterwards, whereas now you can just make it a long-term stay from the get-go. So we're not going to do 160 nights because that's a hefty amount of stay, but we'll start the 10th for check-in, and let's just do we'll do until June 1st. How about that? So it's not exactly 10, the date. So it's 83 nights. Here is your point where you're going to say, what is my billing frequency? You have the option to do monthly, weekly, or bi-weekly. And then the billing day was something that was highly requested because a lot of people do their business and operate their business and want that revenue coming in on a certain day and maybe not the day or the anniversary date of their check-in. So you can do the first of the month, you can do the 15th of the month, so on and so forth, or you can do the anniversary date, which is what we'll do here. You can also add charges the same way that you would. So if you were going to do your site lock fee, you can add that in here. You can add your security deposit if you were going to charge them for that, while they're on property. And then your credit card service fee is going to be shown to you at the bottom, and then your total price. So we'll go ahead and give Court Smith a reservation, and then we will reserve her here. So now it's saying this is my security deposit. We're just going to pay her in cash, and then we're going to process that through. So now it's saying, because obviously my check-in date was today, I owe $1,325. And so you can go in here and you can make that balance payment here. And it's going to do a drop down for you of which ones you want. So you can pay all of these off in advance, or you can go ahead and pay 1 month in advance, or you can just do it monthly as well. So since I already have one that's created, let's refresh my page and we'll go back to today. I'm just going to show you a few different examples. So this is a reservation that's already been here. He has a past due balance, right? But on the recurring charges now, if you go into recurring charges, this is going to be the whole new view of what you're going to look at, from subscriptions into recurring charges for your new long-term stay module. So if you click on the management payments here, you can see that this is a locked payment because this reservation has already been paid for. I cannot alter, I cannot change it, because January 10th has already passed. We know that he has a balance due, right? So this payment wasn't taken, which is why I still have the availability to change and alter this. But if I don't want to, I can exit out or I can confirm and save. The other cool thing is that setting up auto charge is easier than ever. So if you go to your auto charge here, you can change it to yes. You can change your monthly billing frequency if you wanted to change that there instead of changing it at the time of reservation. Again, your billing frequency as well. And then you can do either a credit card and choose one that's on file, or you can even choose ACH and then add an ACH payment as well. So once that credit card is that auto charge and say yes, you set it and forget it, and then you never have to chase down a dollar ever again. Which I know for a lot of operators, just like myself, that was the hardest thing. You'd be calling Mr. Smith. It's the 7th of the month. You were due 3 days ago. And he's like, I haven't received my Social Security check yet. And you're like, Mr. Smith, you're still 3 days late. I need your money. So here, like I said, you set it and forget it. You have the option to use a credit card fee or your credit card charge, or ACH with a lower fee as well. So all of the examples for you here. Then the next thing you'll do is you'll go into invoices. So you can either access invoices by clicking on invoices or on the recurring charges page. So easy enough, right? You have different options here where you can see draft, which are going to be all unpaid invoices, or you can have paid invoices where you can go and send them, if they need another view of it, then you can get, say, view, and then it's going to show them a monthly breakdown of everything that you need in case you need to reprint that off, because we know that some of them like that for their records. Yes, Nick.
We have a couple questions in the chat
Okay.
or in the Q&A. So first question, we have Sean. What if they are unsure of the stay length? So they have a lot of traveling workers and nurses. So sometimes they're unsure of how long they're going to stay. So they initially set them up as a 30-day to start. So how would they handle that, or how would you handle that in that situation, Cord?
Yeah. So, different from subscriptions, you can actually go in and change and modify your rates, or excuse me, your dates the same way that you can on a regular reservation. And then it's going to readjust all of your invoices for you. So even if you add 3 days, if you add a month, it's going to say, hey, here's your new invoice total for all your unpaid invoices. So it's easier than ever.
Perfect. And the next one is from Jedediah. Will we receive notification of failed payments?
Yes, so I will show you that on the long-term page module. And so I think that you guys will be really happy with that there. So as soon as I finish showing you on the reservation, I'll go into another portion of Staylist and show you how that's going to look like there. Okay? Perfect.
Okay.
So I showed where you can, is that all, Nick? Sorry.
Yeah, for now, I got the other ones. I'll start answering them in the Q&A, but you can continue.
Okay, perfect. So if we were going to go to drafts, right, you can, let's choose, I have a better one. Let's choose, can you guys tell that I prepared for this? Is this it here, or is it my other one? Maybe I didn't prepare good enough. Here we are. All right. So on this unpaid, billing statement for the month of April, right? You can add all of your charges. So here shows my pet fee that I added and my electric meter reading. So it's going to, as soon as you close that meter reading, it's going to update that in the outstanding invoice that is left to be paid. So all of your charges are going to go to said invoice. If they were to do a point of sale purchase during that time, it's going to be the exact same way. So you can add that to the invoice and it's going to, add to their balance at the end of the month when that payment is due. You can do the same thing for add-ons as well. If you wanted to add a golf cart in the middle of their stay, if you added it here, it's going to connect to their recurring charge. So all simple ways, instead of having to move and transfer, it's going to be automatic for you, and it's going to read the statement that is unpaid for you to be able to add all of those add-ons, utilities, point of sale charges, and any additional charges in general. So even if you maybe they wanted to pay for an upgraded Wi-Fi package, halfway through their stay, you could go in and add that to that outstanding invoice that is due. Another really cool thing is if it is due, tell me if you can see this page here. Yes. Perfect. So they're going to be sent this invoice and then it's going to have their option to pay at the bottom. So if you don't have an auto charge set up, then it's going to send them this into their email and they can add a payment themselves. So they can either do a credit card the same way, through their guest portal. And they also have the availability to, or the ability to add their ACH charge as well. So these are just all ways that you as an operator can be hands off and make sure that, their payment is added if it's not in advance. So super exciting and all new things for you and your property and your managers and your staff to have less overhead where it's, all automatic within the system. So before I move from here, Nick, are there any other questions regarding what it looks like or how it operates on a reservation?
We have a couple questions here. So first we have Rindy. Can you tell me what time of day the payments will be charged, or is there a way to set up the time? I believe right now it's just defaulted into the system, I believe at 6 a.m. Eastern.
Correct. Yes.
The next
I
one is,
think it's
go
10
ahead, Clay.
p.m. I was gonna say, I believe it's 10 p.m. Eastern. We can confirm on the time, but right now we can't modify the time. But we're looking at adding that as it's actually been a future request to be able to modify the time when the payments go out. So that's something on the future roadmap.
Thank you, Clyde. Cindy has a question. Does the charge go to the current month or the last unpaid month if they add a charge?
So if the month is closed out, so if it's already completely paid for, like these are here, then that charge would go to the month that is not charged.
Okay. And there's one more question from Stephanie. We normally charge electricity each month with their subscription. I look at the balance due report each day to see who needs to pay their subscription. If I move them over to long term, how will I know to also charge their electricity each month?
So the electricity is going to be set up on the same module that you're already metering them on, and then it's going to connect the same way that it connected within from subscriptions into recurring charges to the month that's associated. And then so with that, you'll see it the same way that you'll be able to see it here on the charges for your electric meter if you were to add that charge in the electric meter report. Does that answer your question?
And for today, we're recommending new long-term reservations be created in the recurring charges module. And for your current subscriptions, those will still remain active. And as Nick had commented, we're working on a good solution to transition those over. So just think about it as going forward, we'll move those. It's not going to affect historic. And then we'll make the migration as simple as possible to move any legacy subscription long-term reservations onto the new recurring charges module. So going into next year, everything will be in one system.
Yep. And if you wanted to, end your subscription and then restart that reservation from recurring charges, you would be able to do that too. And then, we can help you in setting that up.
All right, that's what we have for now, Courtney. Clyde
Yep.
is answering the other one in there, so we're good to go.
Perfect. All right. And so the last one is going to be short and sweet, but this is going to be if you go to subscriptions, you're going to see this long-term stays. And a lot of you already have this on here for your subscriptions. It's just not going to relay and read the same way of what if you had long terms created in your reservations. So you can change the status from current, past due, and even closed accounts. The stay type, you have lots of different options. So you can do a booking duration. So it's saying, a reservation that's 30 days or more, or maybe 60 days or more, or maybe 90 days or more. I know that a lot of different states have a lot of different tax codes and a lot of tax implications when it comes to, whether the taxes are turned on or off if they stay a certain amount of days. For example, I'm pretty sure Utah is 30 days and it turns off at 30, whereas South Carolina is 90. So if they say 90 days in South Carolina, then they don't have to pay taxes on that long-term stay. So you can, click on that 90 and then it's actually going to change for you the amount of units occupied, the amount of long terms, the revenue, and the taxes are all going to be different as well. And this is just going to be a quick, overboard dash or overlook dashboard for you as an operator saying, okay, we have $12,000 that have balance dues. For paid reservations, we've only taken $1,700 in. These are the amount that are manual versus auto charge. And then active versus inactive reservations. So all really cool ways for us to be able to look and test. Let's reset this real quick. So we were looking at all long-term stays. And you can see here that this is the reservation that we just created, right? Saying that we owe a balance of 1,300. And then this right here owes a balance of 0 because this one's paid in full. This is also the one that we looked at with the outstanding electrical charge. And so here that within this month, all of these different reservations owe money. And there was a request whenever we were going through this to mark them as red or green, the same way that you have it on subscriptions. So that will be coming as well. So it's going to be an easier, clearer way for you to view and see all of your outstanding balances, along with one of the questions about if you had a failed payment, it'll turn yellow for failed payment as well. That was also a request. And it's just not live right here on our screen yet. But we did have that conversation with our development team when looking at this dashboard for easier visibility. And then lastly, you have just a quick go overview page where you can click right into the reservation and take that payment if they do have that outstanding balance. And that's how easy peasy that is. And obviously you could see the direct reflection of the 1325 compared to the 1325 that is past due and viewed. And that is recurring charges. Do we have any other questions?
We do. We have a couple in the chat. First one is, will it have the start end numbers written out? Currently only shows the dollar amount on the receipt. I'm assuming for the electric meter reading.
Let's actually pull up for that month. I'm assuming that they're asking.
Correct.
It does not. So we will put that request in as well. That's a good one. It does show the quantity. So this can look a little confusing. Obviously, it's not $5 times 121. This would be your fee that you have associated with your electric meter charge, and then the quantity of how much they use that you inputted in the electric meter module.
Next question is, can more than one site be added to the invoicing? They have some companies that rent 2 or 3 sites for their workers and prefer one invoice or payment per month.
So currently that is not a capability, but that is something that could potentially be in phase 2 of our recurring charges module.
And then another question from Sean. I don't see the long-term guest option under availability as I'm setting up a new reservation.
Yes, so it is not turned on for parks yet. We have a few parks that are in beta with it, just ironing out some kinks. So when this is completely live for you, then we will turn it on for the parks that are wanting to do long terms. We don't want to turn it on for everyone in case, they get confused or haven't trained their staff yet. So if you are interested in long term in recurring charges, then we will send out an email to you and then we will get that turned on for you and your property. We just don't want to push it all at one time and then people be like, what is this? And then support be blown up. So it's going to be a gradual thing within all of our properties because we do know that you would need to be trained on this as well.
Do we have a time frame on that, Courtney?
Within the next couple of weeks. Unless Clyde has a better answer than I do. He was over here grinning, so I didn't know.
And will there be a help article created for this?
Yes, there will be. The help article will be out probably this week. So you guys can start reading if you want to get ahead of the game. So when it is live, and you'll have screenshots associated with that as well. So there'll be lots of new things for you guys to be able to, study and go back on so you don't have to go into the support chat and ask questions about recurring charges.
Yeah, and just like anything with Staylist, I've gone in there and played a little bit around with the recurring charges. Shockingly easy to learn, just like anything else in our system. So I understand there's going to be some questions, but it's going to be a very, very short learning curve. So if I can pick it up quickly, I can assure almost anybody can pick it up a lot quicker than I can. So.
Oh yes, it's so easy. One other thing, I don't think I touched on this, but the refundable deposit, as soon as this long-term stay is over, you can either refund, obviously you probably don't have a security deposit of $1,000, but you can either refund that back to them or you can transfer that to a future reservation because, we know that a lot of long terms end up being long terms for several different years. So if they're staying with you this fall and they want to put that refundable deposit on next falls as well, then it's super easy to do that as well. All
Any
right.
other questions? We got another one just popped in. With our long term, we apply their last electric reading towards deposit and then refund. How does that look?
You take their last electric reading towards their deposit. Yeah, so the deposit, you would just refund that certain amount. You can take that, let's see. You can take that security deposit charge and actually attach this charge to that. So anything that would be outstanding from that security deposit, you'll be able to refund them. It would just subtract from that security deposit, if I'm understanding your question correctly.
And we did get a message from Zoe. You will be able to allocate the deposit to the invoice.
There you go. Perfect.
So thank you, Zoe.
Yep.
All right, next one we have for my seasonal campers, I read the meters on the 15th of each month, and I have a list of people that I automatically run their credit card at that time. If the auto payment is early in the AM, then I will have to wait until the next day, or do I wait until I can change the time frame?
So my advice to you there would be if you run all the meters on the 15th, then I would just do all your recurring charges on the 16th of the month. That way you have all of your charges ready to go when they're sent that invoice. You have everything itemized, everything's in one location, and you're not double dipping on charges.
No other questions that are in the chat right now, so I think we're good.
All right. Well, I'll share this one more time. So I just want to say thank you guys so much. Obviously, key takeaways here are going to say that transient stays, have higher nightly revenue, but long-term stays provide stability, which we've talked about throughout the beginning of this webinar. Successful parks build strategy that balance both. So, if you're a park that does mostly transient and you're trying to dabble a little bit in long-term stays, I hope that you took some key takeaways from this webinar and can incorporate the new recurring charges in a seamless way for your park to be able to balance both. Long-term stays are predictable revenue. So if you're looking at CapEx or you're looking at higher labor costs, or, maybe you're wanting to have extended hours for some amenities that you have, these are predictable revenue streams that you can attach and put into play on your property so that you can really say, hey, this is how we're gonna, get to X, Y, and Z budget or bottom line at the end of the year. Recurring charges, it simplifies your long-term billing and how it's managed. And these invoices, I promise you, your guests are going to love them. And we are so excited here at Staylist to provide you with the opportunity to really sit back and relax without, having the stress of managing your long-term stays. So I'm Courtney with Staylist. This is Clyde and Nick. If you guys have any questions or you want to chat with us, in more depth, or, want to turn on recurring charges like Sean does, for their property, then you can email any of us. It's our first name at Staylist, and we'll be glad to help you.